Unchainers. This is To Emerth, and you're listening to the Unchaining Me podcast. Hello and welcome to this first episode of Season 2, brand new season of the Unchaining Me podcast. I'm your host, To Emerth, and boy, it's been a while. It's been almost 6 months since I recorded anything and shared with you guys on this platform or on YouTube. And also my coaching practice was also on pause. So this is me coming back with renewed energy and renewed intentions and excitement to creating new podcast episodes for you. It's been a while for me and I've missed it so much. So I wanted this first episode of this new season to be more of what my life is feeling like right now, the different stages that I went through while I was away and that I'm going through right now and that I am anticipating to be going through soon or sometime in the future. I've been pondering a lot. I've had a lot of time. So I've been pondering a lot about the switch of the seasons. And I've mentioned my fear of pausing in the last episode of season 1 or last season, and you guys can go back and listen to it if you need a refresher. But I've been talking about how reluctant I was to rest, to be away, to take time off. And most of you know the reasons that I had to take this time off. And I have a 4-month-old baby now. Time flies, and what better reason to pause and to rest than becoming a new mom, right? Most of you would ask. But I was very reluctant to allowing myself to pause and to slow down. And I discussed more in depth about this fear that I had last episode of the previous season. So I kind of want to follow up from there and kind of check in with you and update you on how I'm doing and how it's been being away. Being a new mom is no joke. Most of you mothers would know what I'm talking about. Having a toddler is no joke, and most of you parents can relate to. And on top of that, we have a couple of teenagers, and they're going through their own things. And teenage moms, teenage parents, hello there. You know how that goes. And we have a very dynamic family. We have a blended family. My stepdaughter comes and goes. And due to the pandemic, we're actually blessed enough to have her for longer than usual. So she was here for the majority of the past 5 months and attending classes in UK time because she lives in London and she goes to school there in London, England. And you can imagine how the household was for a while, right? You have her attending classes, waking up at 3-4 a.m. So she was functioning at a completely different time zone while I have an infant, a newborn, and a toddler. My husband has full-time job, but he is amazing when he's not even when he's not working and he's not even resting. He was trying to help me figure everything out. And we have kids the teenagers go to school virtually. So there's that. And my son goes back and forth between me and his dad's. So you can imagine all the moving pieces in my life. And it was difficult to rest into that, especially when what I love to do, what I get energy from doing was here doing this, being active in my community, discussing, responding to DMs, coaching clients, creating these podcast episodes and YouTube episodes, just being in this sphere of empowerment and change and seeking all of the things that are worth seeking. So I fought this season. I have to tell you, I fought it. I did not want to step aside and take time off. And I felt guilty for not wanting to rest. Why would I not want to rest into being a new mom? Just take time off. So that was a very interesting dynamic that I went through. So I want this episode to kind of be a reflection of everything that's going on, and I want to make it in a way. I want to show you how it relates to what you could be going through in your life, because these things, these seasons, the dance of leaning in and leaning out happens all the time in many different areas of our lives. It could be just generally life, the leaning in and out of different stages of our lives. Different roles that we may be playing, but also in, our relationships. It can be in our work or career, in our family relationships, or our parenting. It could be in health and fitness. It could be in our spiritualities. So I want to show you how that relates, and I want to share my experiences with you. And I would love for us to reflect on how Unchaining Me has been in the first season. I was thinking a lot about the sense of perfection that we suffer from, that I for sure suffer from. And it prohibits, or it blinds me from seeing the progress that I've made. And I know many of you out there are affected by this, especially mothers. We aim to be perfect. We're expected to be perfect, and therefore we expect ourselves to be perfect. So the things that we do right, the progress that we make, most often go unnoticed. So I want to change that, especially in my own psyche when it comes to the things that I am doing. So I want to take a little bit to reflect on how this podcast has been. It's been 1 year exactly to the month. April 2020 was when I launched Unchaining Me, the podcast. And I did it out of nowhere, to be honest. I've been wanting to launch a podcast for a while, but nothing really materialized until my husband just created the platform and did the logo and everything, and just surprised me one day. It was like, hey, good morning, babe. You have a podcast now. So get up and start recording. So I was very nervous about it, as much as I wanted to do it. And most times we feel nervous about things that we want to do so well, things that are so dear to us, close to our hearts. Motherhood is one. We want to be so good at it. We want to do a good job. That there's a lot of nervousness that goes into how we show up for it. So I showed up for it. There are so many things that I can look back on. We have 16,000 downloads on this podcast, on Unchaining Me podcast season 1, 16,000. That's a good number. And even if it was 700, even if it was 1,000, it shows progress, right? It shows that many people downloading, that many devices, that many souls and days that I was allowed in. That's huge. Attention is scarce these days. For someone to take the time to download and listen to what I have to say, the topics that I've chosen to discuss, and my opinions on those things, my experiences, it's huge. So that's something that's worth celebrating, because most often I look back and everything that stands out to me is what I could have done differently. And hey, those have their points, their time and place. Growing is a big part of the whole process, and I want to reflect back and look at the things that I could have done better and that I can do better going forward. And I love how Eckhart Tolle puts this. He says, I have no use for the past unless I'm going there to reflect. And I don't have any use for the future except to set my intentions and to visualize where I want to go. He has a different variation of this, but the concept that I'm trying to share with you about making use of the past and the future, but not melting into it, losing ourselves into the past and the future, was a concept I learned from the master of presence himself, Eckhart Tolle, in his book, The Power of Now. So that's what I want this episode to be, a reflection and a visualization session for this podcast, but also for our seasons, for the change seasons that we're going through. I'm going to share with you a powerful analogy that I came across about the seasons and change. And I think it's so fitting for where I am right now, so I can be the best vessel for it into your lives. And for most of us, too, there is our shared realities with COVID. Now the vaccine is more available for people. People are getting vaccinated. More of us are getting vaccinated by the day, which is great to see. And with that comes a certain level of renewal. And it's ironic. It's not ironic. It's fitting, actually, to be in spring right now, because we're kind of coming out of the dead of winter. The flowers are blossoming, the trees are getting green, there's pollen in the air, there's bees and birds all over, and the sun is shining brighter by the day. So there's this sense of coming out of hibernation, coming out of the dead that we feel. Not just in the seasons per se, like spring, but also with COVID. And I'm channeling that energy of springing forward when it comes to the things that I do with Unchaining Me. So I wanted to share that analogy with you. So yes, 16,000 downloads since published. We've discussed topics on change, mindful loving, power and connection, belonging. We've tackled fear. We've tackled perfectionism, especially with motherhood. We've talked about radical acceptance and more. So I'm really proud of where the podcast is 1 year in. I'm really excited for where it's going to go until it's time to move on. And that's going to take me to the lessons that I've learned, because I'm this mode of reflection. The lessons were, I learned a lot about podcasting and editing, the different platforms and how to do it, what not to do, all the different times that I started recording and stopped. And, I was overthinking my voice or how I came across or my approach. It taught me a lot about how I share and how I like to share the lessons that I've learned along the way. And then through the researching and bringing to you guys different topics, I've learned a lot. I've grown a lot through that. And through that, I've also realized I have a lot of work to do. I have a lot of work to do on consistency, producing consistently, sharing consistently, so growth can also be consistent. And I've also reflected on how much of my episodes I want to have guests on, and I wasn't able to do much of that last season, but that's something that I want to change going forward and bring to you different people, different men and women that I learn from, so that they can teach us together. And I've also realized that I am at my best when I'm sharing with someone, when I'm sharing the mic, when I'm in the mode of discussing things other than just talking by myself. So that's something that that I have realized. And while I was away, there was resistance. There was resistance to rest, to say winter, to hibernation. And there was a risk of being overwhelmed with those thoughts of resistance. And one time I remember in winter, I wanted to walk outside to kind of just get rid of the chatter in my mind. And I was walking in a park, and it was just full of dead trees. You only saw branches and some leaves that weren't covered with snow, and leaves that had fallen the previous season of fall. And the blooms and the flowers I knew were there. I had this moment of realizing there are seeds around here. There are blossoms waiting. I shouldn't just look at the deadness of this area. I shouldn't look at the deadness of the trees. That's just how they look right now, because they're not ready. Conditions are not favorable for them to erupt into life, but they will. I knew there was a potential for life, even though I couldn't see it. So those moments kept me going. I directly related that to myself, and I kept saying to myself, creativity wise and career wise, I am in the dead of winter right now, and for a good reason when you really think about it, right? But we don't think about those things that deeply, for a good reason, of course. And so So I was able to realize that trusting in the flow of the changing seasons is something that is very innate to us if we don't allow the mind's chatter to to control and be in a favored season or whatever, in a production season, productivity season, every day of our lives or every season of our lives, because that's not nature. That's not how it is. So I kept telling myself, I'm being worked on, even though I lay dormant, even though I look dormant. There are many areas that I was growing in motherhood and relationship and spirituality. And more importantly, in relationship with myself. How am I talking to myself? Am I being gentle with myself, or am I borderline bullying myself? So the stages of change is something I think we need to talk about. I came across this analogy that resonated so deeply with me. I grew up playing poker with my dad, different card games, but also poker. And when I read this analogy, I said, wow, that makes a lot of sense. I love analogies. I think those are great ways to understand, to unpack complicated concepts, or concepts that may not seem complicated, but they have a lot packed in them. We just don't see it. But analogies help us unpack a lot and understand easier some very crucial things that we need to understand. So, like I said earlier, like I mentioned earlier, many areas in life, work, family, fitness, health, these stages come into play. You can call them the spring, summer, winter, or fall and winter in that order. You could call them that. But I feel like the season analogy might be a bit overplayed, and I think this or card game analogy kind of refreshes it a bit. At least it did for me. So let's see how you relate to it. So toss, shuffle, deal, and play. Those are the 4 stages in a card game, right? There is the tossing all your cards. You just win or you lose. You kind of fold, or you win. There's the shuffle, where you shuffle your deck of cards, preparing for the next game. There's the stage of you dealing the cards. Whoever's dealing it, they deal it out. And there is the game itself, where you actually are playing, involved, and in action of play. So first of all, I know for sure I am in the play stage right now. But let me describe all of those stages, and I want you to kind of see where you're at. Simply put, see where you're at in these stages of the card game analogy. So let's start with shuffle. Shuffle, by the way, I'm so good at shuffling cards. I do that whole, like, I show off the brrr. I love that. I love doing that. The shuffle it's a reflection stage. It's where you reset. It's where you revisit the game before. Did you toss in? Did you fold? Did you win? How was it? Right? That's where you're kind of revisiting it, and then kind of anticipating what the next game might be. There's new possibilities that await when you're shuffling, because you're starting brand new. You are hitting the reset button. You revisit your intentions, your values, your priorities. And there's also a part of you that accepts the previous game. I've done my best, win or lose. Last game has ended. there are many lessons that I have learned, and how can I be better going forward? This is a stage where you discover some things that the previous game has taught you about yourself, about others, about life, about your career, about your family, you name it. There are times that during this shuffle session or shuffle stage, you are rediscovering things that you thought you knew. Maybe you took something for granted or someone for granted, and you are consciously rediscovering that thing or that person. So the shuffle is more of a rest, but it's also a reset. And for me, that was the time when I was away. There was a lot of reshuffling. There was, for me, this stage actually also included resisting. I resisted the shuffle. I wanted to be in the game. I wanted to remain there. I wanted to keep producing, to keep doing, which took my attention away from the shuffle itself, the rest and the reset itself that was needed. And many of you out there are doing exactly that, are resisting this shuffle. There's fear sometimes in the shuffle of attaching your worth to what you do, to what you produce, to what you earn, that if the pause brings less of that, and mostly it will, then you are wondering where your worth is going to come from. So this stage forces you, or at least compels you, to find your worth innately in who you are, not in what you do, but in who you actually are. You are compelled to see seeds in waiting. You're compelled to see that this is a different season. I do not need to fight it. I do not need to control it. I just need to be in flow with it. Whatever happened has happened. Whatever has passed has passed. This is my opportunity for something new. And the possibility of new is so exciting, isn't it? I remember whenever a new semester started back home, we would get our exercise books and we would laminate them, like manually laminate them. We would get this paper and then this plastic to make sure that we didn't spill our lunch on it and it got ruined. So that whole process, the smell of new paper, just turning that new page was so exciting. So shuffle kind of reminds me of that, I would say. So then we go to deal. Deal is when you're stretching out from that hibernation, from the shuffle, from the reset. You're stretching out. There's a lot of optimism that's potential in this stage if you are open to it, if your mind and your heart are open. You're optimistic about what is to come. You're optimistic about the cards that you're being dealt. Hey, you could even just finish the game in one go if you have the right cards, right? You're just so optimistic. You're thawing from a frozen state or a dormant state or a hibernation state. And anything is possible. You're eager, you're excited. This stage I passed a few weeks ago, about a month ago. I was going through this stage and I was just my mind was on overdrive. I could do this. I was taking my outline for my new season podcast and the new changes that I want to bring into my YouTube channel. I want to make it more exciting, more engaging, and maybe reduce the length because nobody has the attention these days, right? And then what new things can I bring to my coaching? I want to go into this accreditation course. I want to become an internationally accredited coach. I was putting out these intentions, but with excitement and eagerness, but also nervousness. There was always a nervousness lurking in the back where I thought, can I do it? I'm a mother of 5. I care for an infant and a toddler, and I'm around teenagers. They have their mood swings, they have their expectations. They want to detach from you so much, and you want to attach with them. Like just motherhood itself, mothering these different stage kids with different needs and desires itself is a lot of work. And this dealing stage of incorporating my career ambitions, my service ambitions to the very demanding load and expectations of motherhood brought me a lot of nervousness. So there was that. And this stage taught me how to be okay with being eager and excited, but also nervous and fearful at the same time. Kind of the spectrum, the opposite ends of the spectrum that I was feeling, to be okay, that I'm never going to be all excited and no fear and insecurity or nervousness, or the other way around either. So it's okay to be somewhere in the middle. That's life itself. So that's the dealing stage for most of us. So I want you to kind of see if you are in any of these two stages. Are you in the shuffle? Are you reflecting, resetting? Or are you dealing? Are you kind of stretching out and you're full of optimism? And then there's the playing stage. Fun, right? This is where I know I am. I'm strategizing and I'm executing. That's what the play stage is about. It's about action. You are taking action. And by the way, taking action does not mean you don't have insecurities. I do have insecurities. I tried about 5 different recordings before I allowed the tape to keep rolling. Just in this recording right now, I didn't like my voice in one. I thought I was trying too hard on the other. I was like, I didn't do this. I missed this part. I overemphasized here. There's an echo here. There is that sense of feeling insecure about what you're producing, what you're doing. Perfectionism will apply here. This stage is prone to being stalled by being a perfectionist, and I'm going to admit I am one, and I'm constantly trying to continue to be aware of that so I can defeat it. So there's a lot of action in this stage. There is a need to apply every lesson that's learned, even though that's going to take time. There's the eagerness to apply all the lessons learned. There's a fear of failure. What if I can't do it? There's that. But what we got to do in this stage is go ahead, pick up those cards and make a move. We've got to make a move. We cannot sit this one out. This is not a stage for dormancy. This is a stage. If we get there organically, naturally, this is the stage to act. And keep in mind that this is also a stage that is best approached with flexibility and presence. You cannot be in the past or in the future when you're in this stage, because you'll get crippled. If you keep thinking, the shuffle stage where you are resetting and reflecting, if you kind of mess this up with that or mix it up with that, then instead of moving, you're crippled, you're numb, you're spent, you're just paused. And you are not going. I love this this saying that my dear friend Helena says a lot. She says, you will not be able to see the whole staircase or stairwell, but you see one step. Go up that step. Go up just that ladder, just that step. And then the rest of it will get illuminated as you go up. Just imagine that, an LED light on a staircase. One step, you go up. The rest become just a little bit clearer. If you're at the bottom of it, hoping to see the whole staircase lit, you're probably going to wait there for a lifetime. Many things require you taking the first step first, and then the rest avail itself as you keep going. It's true in relationships. You cannot see where it can go and where it can flourish from the get-go. You may not be able to see where it could go, but then you'll be able to see what it can be today, what it can be tomorrow. And then slowly as you keep going, then the rest becomes available for you. So flexibility is very important. You cannot be rigid here. And presence is very important. If you're ruminating and anticipating, it can debilitate you. And so in this stage, we can actually reach out for our goal. And the next stage is the toss. every game comes to an end where we've played all our cards, we've made all our moves, we've learned, we have grown, we've served, we've produced, we've earned, we've loved, we've accepted, we've forgiven, and everything comes to an end at the end. Seasons change, and it needs to keep going like that. We can't keep in the same space. We can't keep playing the same game. So this stage calls for us to surrender, the toss in. We may have won, we may have lost, but really it's based on our perspective, right? If we have learned, we haven't lost. If we have grown, we definitely haven't lost. So when you think about it, it's a win-win if your perspectives are in the right place. And giving in to circumstances and accepting them, whether they're good or bad, is what the toss stage calls for us to do. Accepting, surrendering, letting go, and getting ready to be in a shuffle mode, which is the reset and the reflection. So I hope this was able to create a visualization for you. I hope you have an idea in your mind as to where you are and what the best things about that stage is, whichever one it is that you're in. And what area of your life, that depends on what's, at the forefront of your mind right now. Sometimes our health and fitness is what's very important for us. And sometimes it's our career, sometimes it's our relationship. We can't give everything our best at all times, right? And if whatever you are imagining right now, to apply to this analogy, whatever part of your lives you're imagining, is what requires your presence the most, your understanding the most right now. But feel free to re-listen this podcast and reapply these different definitions and explanations to a different area of your life sometime in the future. Maybe you are content in your relationship and how it's flowing, and you're not really looking at that in your mind's eye right now when I'm talking about these stages. Maybe what's burning to you right now is your career. Maybe what's burning to you right now is your health. So that's what I'm trying to tell you, is to be okay with whatever is being projected when it comes to this analogy for you, whatever you're applying it to. And then feel free to use this tool next time as well. But the key that I would love for you guys to take from this episode is to be gentle with yourselves. Some may call it hypocrisy when someone's not the best at practicing what they preach or what they teach. But I counter that with saying we teach the things that we most desperately need to learn. So I'm right with you on needing to be gentle with myself on these different stages that I go through, especially when it comes to what I do, my career. I realize that's a sensitive part for me because I tell myself I have a lot to do in this sphere, using my talents. For too long, I haven't realized my talents, and I haven't realized the purpose that I have breathing and living in this earth. And I have this yearning to keep producing and to keep doing and to keep serving, to uplift every life that I can possibly uplift. And as great as that is, I can't keep doing that all the time. That's not in my nature. That's not in the nature of things. That's not in the law of the universe, which is change and flow and season. So if I am against that current, if I'm swimming uphill, if I'm resisting this very natural stages of shuffle, deal, play, and toss, then I will be worn out. I will tire. I will be against the flow, which will exhibit itself in tiredness, in resentment, in resistance, in low drive, and many different things that we don't want to go through. We want to rest in the flow. And in a way, this episode brings the last episode of the previous season almost to completion, because I've been wanting to come back and check in with you about how it's been going. What areas did I struggle with, and what was a breeze. And yeah, so I'm hoping that I was able to achieve that. I'm really excited for the season that is to come. Like I said earlier, I am aiming to bring in a lot of voices and interviews, guests to you guys in this season. Mental Health Awareness Month is coming up. May, we're going to talk about depression and everything else, mental health in an episode in May. We're going to talk about purpose. I will have my dear friend and colleague, Helena, an amazing woman, an amazing life coach, an amazing friend. I'm going to bring her to you, and I'm working on having a couple of other guests this season as well. So let's go on. Let's be comfortable with the pace and changing seasons of our lives, and be gentle on yourselves throughout. But no matter what, keep unchaining.
And don't forget to support by liking, rating, subscribing, and sharing with your family and friends. Thank you so much, and see you with the next episode.